I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Red and blue lights flashing against the trees. Sirens cutting through the calm air of my lake cabin. And there she was, Karen Henderson, the president of our HOA, standing smug at the end of the road, watching it all unfold. Right in the middle of my meeting with the state attorney general. Yeah, this wasn't a coincidence. This was war. Act 1. The conflict begins. I should probably back up a little. My family's lake cabin. This place was supposed to be peace. A little slice of freedom tucked beside the water, passed down through generations. My refuge. But since Karen Henderson got elected as HOA president, it turned into a battlefield. It all started small. My mailbox. She said it was too rustic, like something out of an old Western movie. I brushed it off, figured maybe she just didn't like the way it looked. But then came the notices, fines for mowing my lawn at the wrong hour, complaints that my property had too many trees. Can you imagine? Too many trees on a cabin in the woods. Karen wasn't just enforcing rules, she was inventing them, stacking them, until it felt like every step I took was a violation. She even called the sheriff once because I had a few friends over, claimed we were disturbing the peace. That was the moment I knew I wasn't dealing with a normal busybody. I was up against a power-hungry tyrant. So I fought back the only way I could. I reached out to Sarah Johnson, the state attorney general, a woman with real influence. She agreed to meet me at the cabin, to hear my story, to see firsthand the nightmare Karen was dragging me through. That morning, when Sarah arrived, I felt hope for the first time in months. We stood on my porch, coffee in hand, ready to talk about legal options. I thought this was the turning point, that maybe Karen would finally be exposed. But then came the sirens. A police cruiser screeched to a stop at the foot of my driveway. The officer stepped out, stiff posture, scanning the property like he was expecting a drug bust. And right behind him, Karen, smiling like the cat that caught the canary. "Ma'am," the officer barked, "we've had reports of illegal activity. I'll need you both to step inside." Illegal activity? My jaw dropped. Sarah shot me a look, her eyebrows raised, as if to say, "Are you kidding me?" Karen's voice dripped with fake concern. "I just want to protect the neighborhood. Strange cars coming and going. Shady business happening here, with the attorney general involved." I thought it best to call law enforcement. It was theater, all of it, and I was the unwilling star. Act. Escalation and the twist. The officer hesitated, clearly torn. Karen shoved a thick folder into his hands. Warnings, fines, reports. It looked official, but I knew most of it was fabricated nonsense. Still, seeing those papers shook me. I felt the doubt creep in. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe keeping this cabin wasn't worth the stress. Maybe Karen had already won. For a second, I wanted to give in, to walk away, sell the place, and be done with the endless harassment. But then Sarah stepped forward, calm, firm, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. "I'm the state attorney general, and I will not let this turn into a circus." Karen's smile faltered. For the first time, she looked unsure, and that's when another car pulled up. Out stepped Tom Henderson, Karen's husband. Slick suit, gray at the temples. The kind of man who thought connections made him untouchable. He carried himself like he owned the ground he walked on. "Sarah," he said smoothly, "fancy seeing you here. Surely you don't think this little property squabble deserves your attention?" Sarah didn't flinch. "This isn't a squabble, Tom. This is harassment, and it ends now." Tom's eyes narrowed. He handed the officer another set of documents. "You've been served," the officer muttered, flipping through the papers. "Looks like a lawsuit." My stomach dropped. They weren't just harassing me anymore. They were trying to evict me from my own family's cabin. That night, I sat alone at my kitchen table, lawsuit papers spread out like a trap I'd stepped into. My hands shook as I read accusation after accusation, violating HOA rules, disturbing the peace, running illegal operations, lies stacked on lies. I'll be honest, this was the lowest point. I stared at those papers and thought, maybe I can't win. Maybe Karen and Tom really do hold all the cards. But then I remembered Sarah's words. Don't let them provoke you. Stay calm, fight smart. So I started gathering evidence. Old emails, receipts, photos, even neighbors willing to testify about Karen's bullying. The deeper I dug, the uglier it got. Misused HOA funds, kickbacks from contractors, emails proving Karen had been skimming money for years. And Tom, he wasn't just the supportive husband, he was pulling strings behind the scenes, funneling HOA money into his private investments. Suddenly, this wasn't about me anymore. It was bigger. It was corruption at its core. Act 3. The climax and justice. The threats got worse. Late-night knocks at my door. Shadowy figures watching from the tree line. Anonymous texts. You don't know who you're dealing with. Back down or you'll regret it. One night, Tom himself showed up, stood on my porch in the dark, smiling like a wolf. You've been warned, he said quietly. Keep pushing, and you'll burn. My blood ran cold, but I refused to step back. With Sarah's help, we built a plan, not just to defend myself, but to expose them. We lined up journalists, lawyers, even homeowners who'd have been silenced by Karen's board. The morning of the press release, my hands shook as I hit send on the email. Every document, every piece of proof, every lie they'd ever told, out in the open. By afternoon, the story was everywhere. Headlines screamed about embezzlement, fraud, and HOA abuse of power. Reporters swarmed the neighborhood. Karen and Tom tried to block the story in court, but it was too late. The truth had spilled, and then came the final showdown. At the next HOA meeting, the room was packed. Neighbors, press, even investigators. Karen stood at the podium, her face pale, but her voice shrill, trying to spin the story. Tom sat behind her, arms crossed, glaring at me like he could burn a hole straight through my chest. But when the investigators laid out the bank records, the contractor kickbacks, the fraudulent fines, it was over. The room erupted, neighbors shouting, reporters scribbling, cameras flashing. Karen's voice cracked as she tried to defend herself, but no one was listening. The police stepped forward, handcuffs ready. I just stood there, silent, watching as Karen's smugness crumbled into panic, and Tom's carefully constructed mask slipped into rage. That was the moment they lost everything. Closing line. In the end, I learned something I wish I'd known sooner. When bullies hide behind rules and power, the only way to stop them is to shine a brighter light.